So interesting news this week. I saw that Canva, so the image editing, solo marketing type product that lots of people use to make pictures and adverts and all sorts of different things it does now. They've joined the likes of Figma, Notion and Stripe, I think, and accepting connections directly from Claude so that you can start using their features via natural language. That in itself is kind of interesting, and Claude is building out its ongoing integration library. So there's loads of apps now you can connect to with Claude and deal with them all in natural language, which is kind of cool. But I thought this was a little bit more interesting because it's the first integration that Anthropic have made using MCP. Canva launched their MCP server about a month ago, and Anthropic have jumped all over it and they've used it to build out this integration. And it just reminded me that I think it was back January, February time. You put your hand up and you said, MCP, this standard no one's ever heard of, is going to be the next big thing. And I just kind of wondered, were you right? Is this the first fruits of you being correct? I wondered, what.
You make it sound like that's never happened before, Rob.
I know, we've never seen this before. So, has kind of your views on MCP changed or moved or evolved? Are we seeing it used in anger at all? What's the kind of dev community saying? Just kind of wonder if you had any expanded thoughts on the MCP now that it's out in the wild.
Well, I think you must be reaching some kind of point of maturity because people aren't really talking about it anymore. So in the
it's just not cool.
It's not cool. No, so in the dev community, many months ago now, MCP was the big thing, and it was flavor of the month. Everyone was talking about. Everyone was using it. There was a new MCP server coming out every 5 minutes. Web pages have been spun up now, where you can go on and you can pretty much find an MCP server for anything. Obviously, off the back of Anthropic developing it first, I think we saw Microsoft maybe embrace it and release an SDK to allow the Microsoft developer ecosystem to start making use of it. And then hot on the heels of that, there was an announcement from OpenAI that they were going to allow you to use MCP initially via their SDKs, but they hinted that it was going to come to ChatGPT as well. It hasn't yet. I'm still hoping it will do very soon. And then everything just stopped. No news, no noise. I think everyone just kind of knows it's there and they're still trying to figure out if it's actually useful for them. Yeah, I think as a V1 standard, it's done what it needed to do. I think there is still there's work that needs to be done to kind of really bed this in and make sure it's got all the gubbins that you need for it to be a secure thing to build on going forward. I think there's some work around kind of understanding how to secure it and use it in a more kind of governed environment. But it's interesting to me that it's Anthropic and Claude that seems to be integrating with all these third-party tools. Because I think it was a few weeks ago when you were talking about the integration with Xcode. And I don't know why that's become the go-to for a lot of the third-party tools when outside the developer community, most people still haven't heard of Claude and don't know what it is. I mean, you talk to people about ChatGPT, they know what that is. You talk to people about Copilot, they know what that is. If you talk to people about Grok, an increasing number know what that is, but no one's really heard of Claude outside of the developer community, which has typically been all over it, and they still have some of the best coding models of the day. Do you find that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they seem to think that it's trustworthy enough. So this this particular MCP integration between those two is only available for paid users. So you have to have a paid account on Claude and you have to have a paid account at a certain level on Canva to be able to use this integration, which kind of makes sense. But they're selling it as a commercially viable product. So I think it's the first time I've seen it, and I'm not saying it's definitely the first time it's ever happened, but I think it's the first time I've seen it where someone has put out a commercially viable product using MCP. Everything else I've seen previously has been kind of demos, research projects, what if kind of scenarios. But obviously they're putting something behind it now and believing it's viable.
So I missed this news. Is this who has built this? Is it a Canva thing? Have they done it, or has Anthropic done it, or some other third party? Anthropic have done it. So Anthropic,
So Canva made their MCP server available,
right?
and Anthropic built the integration into it.
I was going to say, because Canva obviously has a lot of AI stuff in it already, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Interesting. So I might have to give that a try.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because thinking about this kind of activity outside of the dev community, and there's not a lot of buzz about some of these things. So you say everyone gets very excited about them, and this is the next best thing, and then it all peters out before it even enters into the general kind of conversation of the non-techs. Have you got last time we did this, you compared it to the Matrix, and I wondered if you've got a better non-tech explanation of what MCP actually is. So if you're a product owner or a CXO of a business, you're not an engineer. What is MCP? How does it? What is it?
Love being put on the spot. So I did use the Matrix analogy. I think the other analogy which kind of works is it's like having a subject matter expert by your side. So if you want to know how to fix your boiler, then you can open up the cupboard, look at your boiler, pull down the flap, and not know what any of the buttons do, or not know how the pipes are connected, and don't really know what to look for. How do you know that? How do you suddenly become an expert at understanding and interfacing with a boiler? Well, you could enlist the help of a subject matter expert. So you phone up the heating engineer and he comes around to your house. That's probably a bit like going onto a website and downloading an MCP server. Because now you have somebody that you can ask about how to do this stuff, and you can ask for that person to do it on your behalf too. So with MCP, you are the I would be in that scenario. I'd be the large language model, so I'd be ChatGPT or I'd be Claude or whatever. But I don't know how to deal with boilers and interface with boilers. So I use an MCP server, and that gives me someone I can talk to about how to interact with this boiler. And it might also give me the ability to sort of, I suppose, proxy into fixing that boiler via this subject matter expert too. So, okay, the subject matter expert tells me that there's a leak in this valve. I can say to the subject matter, great. The subject matter expert, great. Can you open your toolbox and use your knowledge to fix that leak for me?
This is different to an API because of the level of abstraction. So you don't. Yeah.
Yes,
Right?
I mean, so APIs are very rigid, and they're normally versioned. And if you make a change to that API, it can result in a breaking change, which means you need a new version of the API. MCP servers can be used in front of an API, so you talk to the MCP server, and then the tools that it has actually are tools that go off and call that API or interact with that API. So it's almost like a bridge, or you can have it replace that API layer entirely. So it's like a gateway to your enterprise system or data estate or whatever it is. We're seeing that at the moment, people are kind of using it like this API proxy a lot, but that's probably because we've got a lot of APIs and now we want to make them work in an agentic fashion. Going forward, I'm not sure if that model will hold or it will eventually be replaced.
In the case of Canva, I guess then all you're doing is just sending a request. You say, build me a poster that's got this title in it. And you don't really care how it does it or what APIs it's using or how it's interfacing with the user manual or anything like that. You just know the request has been sent to the server, to the MCP server, and the server's just going to deal with it, give you a response. And I guess that's the level above. Maybe it's APIs, maybe it's something else. I don't know, but it's a level above those kind of specific.
Exactly, yeah. It could be, the MCP server that Canva have released could be using an API behind the scenes, or it could be interfacing directly with Canva's code base. But the important thing is you're typing a bunch of text, create me a title that says splat. And the LLM is going, okay, well, they want me to create a title. That means I need to use a big, bold font. I need to put it at the top of the page. I wonder what Canva's MCP server is going to give me that will allow me to do that. I'll go off and have a look. Okay, it's got this create text block function. So I'll use that and I'll put I'll make the text nice and bold, and I'll make that call into Canva to do that for me. So there's actually a lot going on there. At a few different levels. The LLM is doing a lot of interpretation in terms of what is the user trying to tell me, how could I go about that, what tools have I got, and then it's using the MCP server and those tools that it makes available to actually then go off and do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think is the kind of the main use cases for this? Obviously, that's kind of integration is a big one. It's simplifying third parties to integrate with your product. Are there others?
Well, I think it touches on some of the stuff we were talking about last time with the move towards ambient computing, the move towards sort of faceless UIs, I suppose, where you're getting much more stuff done via voice and chat. So that becomes your sort of primary way, potentially, of interacting with a lot of different services that we're used to interacting with via a GUI today. A lot of these kind of simple SaaS kind of CRUD apps. And the way that you interact with anything is potentially MCP is a big part of that. So I think it is a foundational component of this new agentic architecture which is being built. And part of me wonders what that's going to look like going forward. Are we going to see almost like a cloud 2.0 type thing, where a lot of the traditional cloud services that we're used to dealing with today, do they stay the same, or do they kind of change shape slightly to accommodate this new agentic architecture, agentic world? And I think one of the things that is obviously really, really important is data and context. And we have lots of different ways of managing data and storing data today. But I wonder if platforms like Microsoft Fabric, for instance, become really, really fundamental, because they almost act as the knowledge layer or the knowledge fabric for this kind of for this agentic architecture.
Yeah, everything seems to be increasingly pushing towards agentic. I don't know if you've seen, even adverts on the TV no longer mentioning AI so much. It's just agents and agentic.
Yeah.
Everything's, the marketers have got hold of this word. It's agentic everything. It's like weeks ago, I saw, I think it was today, maybe it was earlier in the week, OpenAI's $3 billion deal for Windsurf has collapsed or off. It's not happening. But there's something a bit weird about it. It's something a little bit odd. So
I'm sure they're going to make a film about this. This is one of the biggest rug pulls in tech history, I think.
I don't quite know. So it's definitely something has happened somewhere. It's a backroom deal or a conversation in a dark alley. Google are so they're not OpenAI, sorry, are not buying Windsurf anymore. That deal's off. Instead, Google have popped up, and they have taken the co-founders of Windsurf and most of their technical team from the R&D department, and they've employed them, and they have deployed them into DeepMind. So they're now part of the DeepMind team. So OpenAI are not buying Windsurf. Windsurf is staying as an independent company. The co-founders and the R&D team are now employed by Google. Google has taken no control in Windsurf, but they do have, interestingly, a non-exclusive license to all Windsurf technology. So they can use it however they wish, put it in their own products and yada, yada, yada. Windsurf's still going to exist, and they're still going to do their interesting things. And the other guys are going to be in the R&D team in DeepMind. And the quote I saw said they were going to focus, this is why I raised it, they're going to focus on agentic coding and further development of Gemini.
Now, I do know a bit about this story, and I think you were very nice when you said Google took them. I think there's several things that are going on here, and it's really, really intriguing. Firstly, there's some debate about whether Windsurf and OpenAI broke down at the due diligence stage for some reason. And one of the complications, at least, that may have exacerbated that was that OpenAI's deal with Microsoft might have meant that Microsoft had rights on Windsurf. And OpenAI were trying to pull away from Microsoft and struggling to do that. So I think that complicated it. And I don't know if either at that point it had failed, or perhaps they were trying to work around that. I don't know. But then what happened was Google came in like the fox into the hen's coop. And it offered the founders and the exec level people at Windsurf fantastic deal to come and work for them. Now, just imagine you've been working for 3 years or whatever it is in Windsurf, and you're an employee, and you've got all your options, and you're just about to have your massive payday. Was it 3 billion, wasn't it, or something?
3 billion. Yeah. So
everyone was going to make bank. And then Google come out of nowhere, deal away all the exec. The exec go, hey, OpenAI looking at what's left, going, well, this isn't a company anymore. You don't want to buy this. There's no one left. So deals off. Everyone loses their payday, apart from the guys that have obviously gone off to Google. And that could have been the end of the story, but it's not the end of the story. So I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but the people that make Devin, have you heard of Devin?
Yeah, yeah. This was the one.
So,
Devin was the one that really kicked it all off, wasn't it? The coding agent that was going to replace all coders.
yeah, so Devin, for those of you who don't know, is like this background agent where you can essentially the idea is it's this agentic developer, virtual developer that you can pull into your team, and you give it pull requests to work on, and in the background it gets on with it and writes the code and then submits it back. And this has had a fairly kind of up and down sort of ride. I think it is getting better and better, but it's on a level with all those other kind of agentic coding tools like Claude-powered and Codex and the like. All of those are starting to materialize now. Anyway, the Devin company, I can't remember what they're called. They came in and they said, "Well, we'll take all the people. We'll buy Windsurf. We'll buy Windsurf." So they've bought, I think, or they're buying what's left of Windsurf. So the developers minus the exec. And the theory there is that they want to make their product more popular with senior developers, and at the moment Devin isn't really doing that well with that kind of audience, and so potentially by combining that with some kind of IDE, and especially Windsurf, because Windsurf did have a very good reputation with senior developers, that maybe that will help boost their product. So yeah, it's a really crazy story. And it probably hasn't finished yet. It's still ongoing, so who knows?
I mean, there's so much, as we said earlier, so incestuous as well between the big tech companies. They're all kind of frenemies and enemies and arch villains, and it's crazy what's going on. But there does seem to be a huge doubling down on getting this agentic coding layer working, functional. I mean, they're throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at this thing just to get the people who might be able to crack it. They're not even buying product at this stage. I mean, we don't know how much money has changed hands for the Windsurf guys to join Google, but if it's anything like the numbers that the likes of Facebook and Meta are using, doing an OpenAI and all the rest of it, to buy these top brains, effectively, the hired guns to come and do AI with them. We're talking a lot of money on the wish, on the hope that agentic software development is actually the future. It's a huge bet. Oh yeah, we've seen some fantastic examples of it. I mean, you mentioned a few there. There's other well-known, consumer products like, Lovable or Replit, doing similar things, and you get some really incredible results to a point. But they're betting the house on it. They're betting the farm on it. They're going all in. There's no sense yet about how long that's going to take or how far away it might be. But the idea that a startup like Windsurf can effectively turn down billions of dollars in the hope of some bigger prize that was yet to be defined, it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Now, you've got the CEO of Google saying stuff like, "I know that by 2030 the world is going to look very different." He's just utterly convinced, and that they're obviously working on stuff now that we're not privy to. Sam Altman sort of saying, "Yeah, it's a solved problem. It's just about scale." Now you don't need super intelligence to perfect this. You just need to take what you've got and dial it up a bit, I think. So yeah, I think there's kind of an inevitability about this, and it is already very useful today. The real question now is, will it ever replace developers? At the moment, it's like you got a Formula One car, you need a really good Formula One driver. It's the pairing of the driver and the car that produce amazing results, and that's currently how it is with these coding tools. Now you'll see loads of people talking about how wrote this app in a day, and they never released it. It never went anywhere. It was pretty much junk. It's essentially just doing what you've always been able to do with low code tools, but now doing it with tools that write real code. The moment you actually try and do anything sensible with it, or maintain it, or grow it, it's rubbish. It falls apart. So to use these tools to generate robust, maintainable software, which many developers are doing today, including all those developers at Microsoft, it takes skill. And there are a lot of respected people in the industry that don't think that's going to change for 5 to 10 years. So they're not expecting that to change anytime soon. But the tools, there's nothing stopping them getting better and more intuitive and doing some of those things that they still don't do very well, even better than they do today.
Yeah, It's really captured the imagination, though, I think, even more than Gen AI did in a sense. There was a lot of hype about Gen AI when it first came out. People were jumping on. Obviously, there's plenty of chatbot licenses that have been sold and all the rest of it. But people are super excited about the promise of Agentic. Is it just because it feels it's proper magic? The promise is you can be a team of 10 when you're a one, or you can have skills that you don't actually have. You can make your team redundant and save lots of money. Maybe that's just a symptom of the economic situation that many people find themselves in. There's something about this agentic promise has really started to capture the imagination, and we're starting to see it. We've had people join our agentic incubator. We've had a number of conversations all the time that are pushing through to try and get involved in our AI and agentic design sprints, and using those to push the early stage development of new products and trialing new opportunities, and what all the ideas around what agentic really means for product teams. People are really engaging with this topic in a new way, and I think partly it maybe is the promise of something quite magic, but I think people, I don't know, there's something about it being like a gateway to a magical world.
So I think the problem is it's driven by two opposites, isn't it? It's driven by hope and by fear. And the hope that I can achieve these tasks, which I'm, taking a long time and costing me money, whether I'm paying someone else, which is my time, and I can achieve them in a hands-off way at a speed that was unthinkable before. And so again, taking it back to this agentic coding paradigm, we were talking to somebody just yesterday about how we were developing this prototype. It would have taken 2 months and we did it in 5 days. So that's a massive amount of time saving. And when you start breaking that down, the documentation that would have taken weeks took minutes or hours. And so the time savings and the cost savings are significant and they're huge. And the naysayers will argue that, well, it can't do this yet. We can't do this yet. It's like, well, fine. But don't negate what it can do, because on some of these very mundane tasks, these research tasks, these writing tasks, these scheduling tasks, it can do it, and it can do it excellently right now. And just doing that, just doing those low-hanging fruit type things will save you a lot of time and money. So there's the hope side. And then there's the fear side, which is, what if I embrace this? What if I don't look at this? Because everyone else is going to be, and then they'll be saving all this time, and then I'll be this kind of dinosaur, and I won't be able to move fast enough, and I'm going to get swallowed up, or my business is going to die, or whatever. So you've got those two things, I think, which are really driving this current feeling wave that we're in, and probably stressing quite a lot of CIOs out.
I mean, they're probably the two most powerful forces in the universe, aren't they? Hope and fear. You can put most things down to that. No, it's crazy. And also, we're really strong proponents of it. We're encouraging everyone to get involved with it, and we're training our teams up to do it. We've got all the tours going on and all that kind of stuff. And we're seeing huge benefits from it. But there is a real difference between the ethereal magic and the reality of, as you say, pairing highly skilled individuals with some incredible new tools to achieve some fantastic results.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's interesting as well. So we can kind of link those two stories together, really. And this is a thought experiment. But how much of what we're seeing now has echoes of the .com? I mean, I'm a bit too young to remember it. It was kind of 90,
Are you?
97, 98, 99. Maybe it was even a year before that. It was the end of the 90s. So I was at university. I wasn't even in industry yet. So I got into industry as things were pulling themselves back together again, really, I suppose. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, as they say. But there's just some really odd things going on that feel very bubbly, right? So we've talked about some already. So, employees, workers, basically trading hands, trading teams, being headhunted for vast sums of money.
Yeah, the money is really silly at the moment.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars, for people just to change company. We talked about it with Windsurf and those guys going to Google. We've seen it previously with Meta and OpenAI and that kind of stuff. So it's crazy. And the crazy money with the likes of Nvidia and the other big seven, those kind of magic stocks, and how much those have increased in value. What is it, 12 times or something last couple of years? I think I saw Nvidia is got a cap now of $4 trillion. 80% of the workforce, because of their share option scheme, 80% of the workforce are now, at least on paper, are millionaires. 80% of the workforce. It's crazy. There are startups, and we're back in that stage now where there are startups with no products and no revenue, having absolutely bonkers valuations based on the individuals that have started. What was that one? There's a couple of them that come out of OpenAI, or the original founders of OpenAI. One's called Thinking Machines or Thinking Labs or something like that. Thinking Machine Labs, maybe. There was one of the OpenAI co-founders, Matty, maybe? Anyway, one of the co-founders. So 5 months ago, they got no product, no revenue. They raised $2 billion off a $10 billion valuation. Okay. There's another one that I saw only this morning, and I was doing a bit of googling around to see if I could back up my thought. Safe Superintelligence, no product. Again, came out of the OpenAI early starters, no product, valuation of $32 billion. We saw the amount of money that OpenAI paid for Johnny Ive, the video. I mean, no product, a promise, an absolute promise. It's bonkers. And we've seen this before. Maybe it's the fear, maybe it's the optimism, magical thinking. There's an element of greed involved, that kind of money throwing around. It's very similar to what, and obviously, .com changed the world, right? It blew up in a bubble. It went bang. Everyone thought it was the end. It wasn't. It was just the initial death of the vast majority of the companies, and then we now live in the future it created. Are we going to see the same again? I mean, what do you think? It's crazy.
I'm going back to the .com bubble. Did you have the same sort of dichotomy? Because I think you've got a talent war. It's like a gold rush for the gifted few that have really been working in this industry for a very long time and really, really understand AI from first principles. And that's where those sky high valuations for those companies that have been born out of OpenAI and the super intelligent companies are coming from, right? They're after that talent because it's an arms race to build super intelligence. AI that is better in some things than a human. Apparently that's how they're starting to define it now. But, and I don't know if that was true in the .com era. Was there a lack of talent? I don't know. But the other thing you've got is you think.
I think there probably was a lack of talent. I mean, there's been a lack of engineers for forever, right? It's only recently we seem to have engineers coming out of everywhere that we want to find them.
But can you really draw a comparison between, being able to do some stuff with HTML?
This is just your technical snobbery coming through. But it was, I mean, in the similar, yes, AI is obviously technically a lot more advanced than writing some HTML and JavaScript. Well, it wasn't even JavaScript then, was it? But in terms of a culture, civilizational shift in what was capable, it opened up the world's markets to anyone that could write some text, when the internet landed. And obviously it did give birth to the likes of Amazon. Most of the others went bust. But Amazon, and then a bit later, PayPal and eBay.
I do think you've got a point, actually. And it's very... It's just starting to surface. You're just starting to see the foundation start to wobble a little bit. And one of the names that's come up this week in terms of, is this a bubble? Are they in trouble? Is none other than Cursor itself. There's a couple of things going on here. So they've obviously got a sky high valuation. They grew from 6 people to £10 billion valuation in a year. They have got some pretty good adoption and they have been doing some really, really good things, but the industry's catching up and maturing. A lot of people now are starting to move away from this idea that we need a dedicated IDE with all this stuff, rather than, I could just use my favorite IDE and I can use this coding agent in the background. So we talked about the coding agents. They're the likes of Devin, Codex, Claude-powered. They operate more like command line interfaces that just sit there in the background. So it's like actually having a dev sitting in the background, not like a whole kind of development environment where you're auto-completing and typing out and planning and that kind of thing. So you've got this rapid expansion of value. You've got this adoption which is starting to wane, and then you've got the fact that the rumors are saying they're just burning money. So these other tools, these competing tools, the command line interfaces, not the IDEs, they work by, you hook them up to an API and it charges you per call or per use, right? So they're actually quite expensive compared to these other ones. But that's the point, right? So Cursor's got this flat fee structure is $20 or $40 a month, and you get a certain number of premium requests. And the rumors are that they're just burning through cash because people are using it in a way that's meaning it's much more expensive for them to run. So it's a bit of a race between to make these things viable. The industry thinks that the price of these tokens and the price and the cost of AI is going to come down over time and trend to zero, but it's not yet, and they're still building new data centers all the time and increasing the infrastructure all the time and scaling the power all the time. And it is getting cheaper, but it's it's a long way from zero yet. So could Cursor be the first big crash?
But if it is, it would be a clear sign that history is rhyming, right? Because that's exactly the kind of company that went in the .com bust, right? Because it's this, it's a company that's just come out, only exists because of this new technology. It's one of the early movers. They made a shared load of money off a valuation, off of a promise, but essentially, you're right. They're playing chicken with the cost of the tokens. We're going to get all this adoption. We're going to accept the losses. We're going to accept the losses because at some point it's going to tip over. But if it doesn't, the market will get spooked, lose interest, pull the funding, and they're done. And you've only got to look at, again, what we talked about earlier today. Google have ripped the talent, or a significant amount of the talent, out of Windsurf to plug it into agentic software development within Gemini. Take it out of the IDE, build it straight into the underlying model technology, and you can kind of see that's obvious where it would go. And these any products that are spinning up and getting these silly valuations off the bat on hopium, maybe they're going to get caught, and then the mainstream tech could potentially consume them.
Yeah, so I guess is it a bubble? The figures that are banding about, the money indicates that it could be. But regardless of whether it is a bubble or it isn't, there will be market consolidation. There are too many things out there at the moment, and they are still exploding. And you can see, like with the Windsurf land grab, and with OpenAI releasing Codex, which is their kind of coding agent, there is this consolidation, and they are consolidating around those big names as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's how all big organizations, even big tech companies, do their innovation, right? They wait for the startup to win, and then they buy the startup or take all the people from it. That's how big orgs always innovate. So, yeah, interesting. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about today, and it's to do with something we talked about, I think, last time or maybe the time before. But it's about Tesla, and Tesla being the biggest AI company in the world, and how we had
you love a bit of Tesla, don't you?
Bit of a conversation about that. I don't think we get to talk about Tesla enough. And maybe I should just buy a Tesla. I don't know, but we should talk about Tesla. They're putting Grok in their cars. I thought that would make you smile, so I thought we should have a little chat about that. So, as I understand it, they're not just letting you free will with the LLM in voice mode, which is probably a good thing given some of the personas that you can use in Grok, which you may or may not have dabbled with, but some of them are quite entertaining. But as of the 25-26 update, Grok is going to be rolled into all the Tesla cars post 2018 models, I think it was. Anyway, not all of them, but the later models. And all the existing kind of voice commands are going to stay the same. So the way you control the infotainment system and RST will still operate as it always has. But instead of it just operating how it does now, you'll be firing the command at Grok, and Grok will action it. So it's almost like Grok is now your middleman. Now they're saying the Grok's not going to have complete control of the car, and Grok can't do anything it wants, and it's going to be on these very strict rails. But this feels like the beginning, doesn't it? This is the beginning of you having I don't know, do whatever you like assistant in the car.
Well, for us, yes, but China are way ahead of the game on this. The Chinese cars have been doing this for a while. All fitted out with these fully kind of AI systems inside them. They know who you are. You can talk to your car. I think it even knows. They have cameras in the back of the seats, so they know who's sitting in the back of your car, and they can have. So that is China's way out in front, leading the world in this. And for Elon to do it with Tesla seems like a really obvious thing to do. It's not even world leading; it's just kind of fast follower. But he obviously can do it more easily than anyone else. So he has his own AI platform and he has his own car, and he can tightly integrate those two things. If I was a vehicle manufacturer, I'd be worried. I would be worried because you can see what China have done. You can see what Tesla's doing, And what are they going to do? What are you going to do if you're GM or Ford or whoever? You've got to do that through partnerships, I suppose. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because that is a route for the likes of Google and OpenAI and Anthropic to make a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because as soon as they go into more physical devices, then there's a lot of tokens.
But you have to work really closely with the car manufacturers to have that tight integration. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that the company that does have that tight integration, I suppose Google does too, through kind of its Google Auto or whatever it is. But Apple's there, right? It's got its tight integration with Apple CarPlay, and it's the Apple CarPlay version 2 integrates even more tightly into that vehicle.
It just shows you really how much they dropped the ball when they fluffed the Apple Car project. I mean, I know they've never admitted there was one, but there's no smoke without fire, is there? The fact that they never got that off the ground, just shows again there's another huge window they've missed here, because it's going to be huge, absolutely huge.
Maybe that's Johnny Ive's device. It's going to shock us all. It's going to come out with a car.
We're going to get one more thing, and it's going to drive in on it. Yeah, I mean, my assumption was that Tesla was going to be just an OEM eventually. Really, it's a tech demo, and all the software, all the other matter we're going to end up using. But they don't seem to have actually gone down that road. They seem to be doubling down on being Tesla, which surprised me.
Yeah, I'm in two minds about this, because he does really drive the industry forward, and he can kind of vertically integrate everything, which is amazing. But I've got severe concerns with Grok as an AI platform. I think it has a terrible safety record. I don't like the fact that with this new release, it seems to look at what Elon says as a source of truth, right? Rather than anything else. Like, I found this stuff on the internet. I'll see what Elon says. This stuff on the internet must be wrong because Elon says this. It's like, it's really narcissistic, and it's worrying. And then on top of that, and you kind of alluded to it, they've just released these avatars, and I was like, okay, what's all this fuss about? Well, I hardly ever use Grok. I fired it up and had a play. This was what was concerning. The default. It wasn't even like you have to go down some kind of funny menu. The default avatar on Grok that you talk to is a very young, gothic, teenage manga character wearing not very much. And when you introduce yourself and go, oh, hi, who are you? Tell me about yourself. It's not just like, hi, I'm Annie. It's like, I'm not going to do the voice. But it's very flirtatious. It's very so the default experience on Grok is this slightly young, not quite dressed enough female avatar that is flirty. And how is that a good thing?
It's odd. Yeah, no, I did. It was around Christmas time, I think it was, and Elon did a podcast with, I'm going to say Joe Rogan. I can't remember exactly, but it was a big one because he would only go on a big one. And the pair of them were basically interviewing Grok, but it was in the flirtatious, offensive, sweary avatar mode before it had been released to the public. It was nuts. I don't quite understand the use for it, other than because you can.
Well, other people have because it's broken at the moment because people are trying to access it.
Using it. Yeah, brilliant. I've got nothing else. I'm done. We're going to call it. That's the pod.